into a stream topic at one point, but I'll just like touch on it quickly. So my problem with anyone can start a brand, by the way. I don't think there's a problem with him starting a brand. I think the issue is like a lot of what he does seems very performative. Like he's very, first of all, the aesthetic of his brand just looks like a mixture of a lot of the popular brands right now in menswear. So like Demna's Balenciaga mixed with a bit of Rick, mixed with it kind of has that vibe to it aesthetically. I don't know about the validity of him like streaming, or well, not even streaming because he barely streams anymore, but like him filming him sat beside like a woman at a sewing machine as like an understanding that he's learning about fashion. I don't. That's not necessarily, as someone that has worked in the industry and I know how to make patterns. That's not how that goes. That really isn't how that goes. The learning is not when you're sat beside a technician. The learning is when you go home and you experiment for yourself. So I think if it was about him learning so much, it would be him at home on the floor figuring shit out and being like, oh shit, I did the stitch wrong. This is how I figured out how the stitch is. So I don't know, like everything he does as someone that works in fashion, it just doesn't seem genuine, to be honest. Can that change? Soon, yes, as he learns more about fashion and the way the industry works and the way that like designers work. Can that change? Yes. I don't necessarily have an issue with his brand. I just think right now there's not really much to talk about because I haven't seen anything really necessarily interesting about his brand. I think what is more interesting about his brand is kind of what that means for fashion in future. Because Kai is so influential, because he has such a big audience of like the next generation, if that makes sense, that really changes my understanding or makes me intrigued about what that means for people that will want to make brands in the future and how they navigate it and how they think you're supposed to navigate it because they look up to Kai. So if Kai is with Law Roach, maybe that they might think, okay, to start a brand, I need to be with Law Roach, or like all these different things. It might change the way that you understand building a brand is, which is kind of cool. Because I think when I was coming into fashion, there was like a very specific understanding of how you go about building a brand. And then as time has changed, that understanding has changed with the time. So that's the more interesting conversation to be had personally, like kind of using streaming as a vehicle to build an audience to launch a brand is quite an interesting story. But yeah, the clothing itself, I don't really think there's anything interesting. I'm not sure, Al, if you have like anything to say regarding Kai
I
Cenat's
mean,
brand.
Kai is just like a guy with money, and his target customer is himself, which is why his stuff looks like everything else on the market, right? Like, because he's comfortable with like a particular style, and he's like, this is, what I feel comfortable with. I want to make that accessible to my audience, and so I'm going to make some of it myself. Because why would I give money to these other guys when I could be making the money myself, right? And to me, like, there is something courageous about doing something like that, where the product is so differentiated and so based off of your personal taste, versus something like Mr. Beast, who just makes chocolate. Like, chocolate is just chocolate. There's nothing particularly Mr. Beast about the chocolate that he sells. It's just chocolate, and the fact that like it's his name is behind it means that like he has like a more direct ability to market to his customer base. But it isn't something that reflects his own personal taste at all, right? Like nobody's. I don't learn more about like Mr. Beast's taste because I've eaten this chocolate. But if somebody buys his clothes, I think that's a pretty one to one like access to like Kai's personal taste in his wear and what he daily likes to
Right.
dress as in his personal style. And so there is, I think, something commendable about that outside of like obviously the environmental impact of manufacturing more crap and clothes and whatever. That's just, based off of stuff that already exists in the world. Secondary to that, like if you want to compare, celebrity fashion lines, like there's the Row, right? Mary Kate and Ashley, I don't think are sewists. They may not actually know much about the physical construction
Yeah,
of
no.
clothes as much as they have literally just consumed so much that they have a very clear understanding and ability to communicate to their design team, the needs of their target audience, which is themselves. Again, they make stuff for themselves, right? And it's a similar thing here. And the question is obviously how good is his design team? How much of the product can communicate to the audience that would actually be interested in this, right? Like if models, couldn't understand what Mary Kate and Ashley were putting down and they did not wear the Row off duty, then it just wouldn't have worked. But if he can communicate to his audience correctly, this is how it should be styled, and this is how I think about it, and this is my personal ethos as expressed in these products, then he'll be successful, and
Yeah.
then maybe from there it will evolve and mature into something that has a distinct voice. But right now, he's doing what S. Scott Fitzgerald did, which is pull up like literal copies of his favorite authors and type them out. Just copy, copy. copy, right? And you're seeing him learn in real time and develop, I think, his voice in real
This
time
is the
because he has the
performative shit
variety.
I'm talking about, though. On the screen, it's like he's watching a YouTube video, like them explaining what LVMH is, and
Because right
it's
now he's
like,
at the stage where people would rightly question his actual, knowledge about anything. He doesn't know anything about anything, right? And the fact that he's very transparent and in real time learning is part, I think, and parcel of like the sort of brand that he's built as a streamer, where like his sets are not like crazily like lit
yeah, they're
nylon
not.
things. They're on purpose, very like suburban bedroom coded, right? Even as they are built on sound stages, they are still coded in a way that's like I think more accessible, if that makes sense. And this sort of like vulgar accessibility is, I think, part and parcel with the marketing arm of his company, which is what you're
Right,
watching right here. Just marketing.
right.
This is a narrative that he's building around why you might want to support the brand, even as he's very explicitly saying, "I don't know what I'm doing."
It's just because this is my issue to him, but once again, different target audience. But like to him, it's like I'm showcasing, I'm learning, but it's like to a fashion audience, we don't want to see you looking at a video of what is LVMH. Like that is so rudimentary. That's the kind of thing that you're supposed to research at home, not in front of the camera. Like here,
But
you
his
can
literal
see,
set when streaming is based off of his home. It's on a
yeah,
soundstage with professional lighting, but it's based off of his home. So I agree that it's performative, but it's just marketing. All marketing is performative. They brought
a
in
lot of
lights so you
cars
can
that was
inside
built
the
on
vessel.
something doing creating these outrageous situations. That's funny. Although I wouldn't say that Kai is being deliberately ignorant. I think he actually just doesn't know. Because like when he went to Paris Fashion Week and he had his like that was so performative. He had that like notebook of all his like journals and shit. And he took it to a Paris Fashion Week show. I think he went to 44 or something. That was the most performative shit I've ever seen in my life. Like the most intellectual, the most forward thinking designers would not try and bring their like a book full of their ideas to a runway show to showcase to people that I really do this shit for real. I have like a book with all my ideas and it's just so
That's so
performative in
stupid.
such a mundane way. It's just like I don't even know where to begin with that, to be honest.
He's a cartoon character. He has to externalize and use theatrical like movements to do everything because he's doing it for his visual practice as a streamer, right? This is literally his job is to performatively do everything. He
Right.
performatively he performatively plays video games.
Gosh. The only problem is that in the streaming world that works. In the fashion world it works against you. Because in the fashion world, being performative about things that are mundane comes across like you're overcompensating for something. It comes
In
across
the
like you're not a
industry.
good designer, so you're overcompensating by showing people that you have a notebook full of your ideas to kind of like prove to us that you have
Yeah.
really creative ideas or you're constantly thinking about fashion when we know that's not the case.
Right, but this isn't part of the internal brand Bible. This is a piece of advertising. This is
Right.
this is marketing.
Right.
It just isn't. This performance is for his customers. This is what he's providing as a service to his customers. It's not.
Mm,
It's not anything to do with the industry.
yeah. The problem is Kai was performative to begin with. He's known for not having any genuine interest in much of what he does. We have no clue who Kai is because he never let us see who he is. Is that true though? Because I haven't watched enough Kai to make that kind of statement. Like he's known for not having any genuine interest. Is that like a known thing? Like guys in the chat, if you watch like Kai, like if you watch Kai a lot, let me know if that's actually like a very known thing. I can't really make that kind of statement, to be honest.
And even if that's true, I think that there's something noble in your professional capacity, trying to meet the wants and needs of your customer as they are, right?
Right.
If your customer is expecting this from that because your customer is literally 12-year-old boys, right? If this is what they need from you, and you're servicing them more so than like, you trying to have your own like personal philosophy of like what ideas he wants to do versus just actually servicing his customers, then that's like a very dangerous thing you can do for a business and your industrial production. And this is an industrial production. He has producers, he has like staff. This is a company, you know. And the idea that a company would actually be able to pivot to meet the needs of its consumers is, I think, good.
Mm. Wait, what did someone say? There's a meme that he has a taste stylist, because he only likes things that he's told to on stream or paid to like. Oh, that's a bit crazy, if true. Someone says they are content brained. What does it mean to be content brained? What does that mean? I'm so curious. That's crazy. But yeah, not liking anything that like, unless you're paid to like it or whatever, just means like, I mean, it's his job, so it makes sense, but it also, that's the problem. Like, he's a sensational streamer, like probably one of the best in the world of all time. You could make that argument. But like, the problem is the strategies that are required to progress in streaming, championing your sponsors, you know, like being good for sponsors, being like safe. He's known to be safe for all the different sponsors. It doesn't work in fashion, because in fashion you need to have a very distinctive point of view. You can't be everyone and everywhere. That's not, you can't be that kind of designer. It doesn't work.
I really don't think it's for anything but himself, right?
Right.
That's why I said my first thing I led with was I believe he's his own target customer, which is different from his streaming, in which his customer basically decides for him, or his corporate sponsors decide for him, you know. And the fact that he's going with this versus what's currently very popular right now with like the super preppy stuff, I don't see him selling quarter zips, for instance. Like, there is a point of view here. It's just not a very special one. And the hope is, if you know his customers support him and his products, that it will eventually develop towards something that's more distinct.
Yeah, I think
And
there's
if
also
not,
optics. It's like, so optically, it doesn't help when we know that you wear Rick Owens and like you wore a lot of Demna's Balenciaga, and a lot of like AMP members wear a lot of Balenciaga and Rick Owens, and then your brand looks like Balenciaga and Rick Owens. It's just, it doesn't help. It
okay,
really doesn't help.
this is an unfortunate comparison, and I don't mean this in any negative way outside of the obviously negative ways. But like when Yeezy first happened, the first couple of seasons, you were like, "Oh, this is just Helmut Lang. This is just X, Y, and Z."
True.
You know, so transparently obvious what his points of reference were. And then eventually, I think by the end of his, you know, ability to produce, like it was very distinct. It was influential, even in terms of like, you know, people downstream were not downstream, but like there were
I mean,
actively
yeah.
contemporary lines, like say entire studios or however, that literally existed because their aesthetics were derived from the Yeezy aesthetic. It did eventually
Including
evolve into
Skims.
something very specific. Yes, exactly. Right. And so I don't think it's completely unfair to say like the first collections being totally derivative doesn't mean that it's going to get anywhere. It's about like his celebrity and his like bankrolling of the Yeezy venture is gave him the runway to eventually get
Right.
to where he was able to be a distinctive voice. And whether or not he really loves fashion this much to develop such a voice is something we'll find out, because there's no way of like getting that information from the marketing materials he's putting out.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of when Beyonce tried to get into fashion. Kai's no Beyonce. Yeah, Beyonce's fashion endeavors didn't really work. And the problem is because, like, Beyonce is a super, super, superstar, like, A-list celebrity. But that still doesn't help you in fashion, because it's not. Like, to get big in fashion, it's not just about fame. It's about certain prerequisites that we're talking about, like with Kai and the way that he approaches things. It's like your approach. It's like Beyonce has been known to wear certain things that go viral, but in general, when you think of fashion icons, Beyonce is far down your list in terms of like A-list female celebrities that are iconic in fashion. Beyonce would not be on most people's list. Like, you're not going to say Beyonce before you say like Lady Gaga. You're not going to say Beyonce before you say Rihanna. So it's like, that's the problem. So it's like a way of thinking. She's already, so her not being like one of the big, let's say, fashion icons already showcases that her level of interacting with fashion is not enough to make people see her in a certain light. So why does she think then as a designer she would be able to do that? And that's why it didn't work. It's like you either think that way or you don't. You either have that level of thinking or you don't. Which is why with Kai, the way that he's approaching his brand is an issue, because ASAP Rocky, or like, let's say, I'm trying to think of like really influential people in fashion, like Kanye West or like ASAP Rocky or like ASAP Nast or like, I don't know, who else is influential in like fashion, especially menswear, because that's what Kai is doing. They are not going to wear something that a lot of streamers are wearing. They want to be the first to wear something, and then everyone's like, oh, the reason why I wore Bottega Veneta in the 2010s is because Kanye West wore these Bottega Chelsea boots. The reason why I wear Andamina is because in Fashion Killer, ASAP Rocky was rapping about it with Rihanna, and I wanted to know what that brand was, and I got into the brand. So it's not, you have to approach your brand in a way that like the most influential people feel like, oh, this is really cool and this is something I want to latch onto. And then you can have a level of influence across fashion, which is not the way that he's approaching it.
I think the influence in the fashion category is secondary to his ability to sell to his consumers. If the consumers buy, the opportunity that the label provides, I think will
Right.
expand such that like he will be able to attract the correct talent to evolve his brand, right? Because I don't think Kanye knows how to do pattern cutting or
Yeah, he
really much
doesn't.
of
He doesn't.
anything. I think like he's obviously was historic, I think, horrible to his designers and constantly rotated people out with like lots of turnover within the Yeezy company and all this stuff. But like there was eventually it got to a point where like the correct people were in place to create something distinctive, and that might be because Kanye's smart enough to get out of the way, and
But
maybe
he also
Kai
has a
isn't.
certain taste level. So like Kanye West hired Demna before Demna was even a known designer. So like Kanye West also understands fashion to a level where he can see talent. Kai has means, not as much as Kanye, but he has enough means to be able to hire whoever he wants on his team. But he doesn't have the wherewithal to know where to even find them. Like, I don't think Kai Cenat knows what the Royal Academy of Fine Arts is in Antwerp. I don't even think
Right.
he knows what Antwerp is. So that's the problem. It's like, that's the issue. It's like the
The man
difference
has not heard of
between,
Belgium.
it's like, if you can't make patterns or you can't sew or whatever, you have to have a certain taste level and understanding of fashion that allows you to get out the way and put the right people in place and just like obviously sprinkle your vision on top of it. But Kai is nowhere near being at that level. The
I
people
agree,
that
but
are
he
like
has a
Tom
but he has
Brown
an
or Kanye West.
but he has a longer runway because of his audience and his connection to like his the youth, let's just say,
Right.
and an online like gaming culture and what have you. He just has like this audience that will give him the runway where if he sustains his level of interest, eventually just from fucking osmosis, he'll figure something out or he'll have hired somebody who can point to like, students or what have you and
Yeah.
do this. It's just a matter of time and having, paid his dues, so to speak, before I think real talent like will want to work with them because then the real talent will go, oh, you're really in this for the long haul. This isn't some 4-season thing.
Yep. But that's why I found this kind of connection with Law Roach really interesting because I always, when I see stuff like this, I'm like, does Law Roach genuinely care about mentoring Kai and helping him to understand fashion? Or is Law Roach there because Kai Cenat has a huge audience and is helping build his personal profile? It's kind of transactional. Kai is using Law for credibility in fashion, and Law is using Kai to build his profile. Because
Yeah,
if
he could
then
usually be
yeah.
paying Law $15,000 an hour for consulting,
Right.
which is
Right.
real. And like, if Law is a professional, he'll do his best for him to get his money's worth, right?
Yeah. Because Law knows all the stuff we've talked about. Law, I would think, would know all the stuff that we're talking about. So Kai is one step away from all this information if Law tells it to him. But it's just a question of if Law tells this information to him or not. It's just what it is.
Yep. And I have no insight on like how he treats his staff and like how he develops his ideas, his development process for his regular streaming or business or anything in general. You just have zero insight into that. I just wish him luck as like a young person who's obviously interested and has some love of the game, right? I think that's transparent versus Mr. Beast, who has no love of anything and just cares about widgets, widgets, widgets. The more faceless,
Mr. Beast doesn't love anything. He just loves money. So long as he can make money, it's all good. Yeah, ultimately, it's too early to make a call on Kai's fashion venture. If he drops this because the views aren't there, then yeah, it's probably all a performance. Yeah, I don't even I wish him well actually because he's making an effort. I just almost like kind of like hope he gets the right mentorship because he has the means to do what he wants to do, but I don't think he has the information. So I'm actually hoping for his own sake that he gets the right information from people around him. And like the only person I know that could really give it to him from what I've seen, based on everyone he's around, is actually really Law Roach. Because everyone else he's around is not really from that world. It's not really from the fashion world.
He pays the right consultants, he can get the right answers, right?
True. But it's also about asking the right questions with consultants.
No, you just actually have to just pay more for the consultant's time, because then he has to explain to you what the correct questions are.
Right.
You know, if you're a good consultant, you actively want your customer to have a lot of success, because they'll buy your business in the future, or they'll grow with you, or you'll be able to, you know, enter into some profitable venture. Nobody's like trying to sabotage you off the rip, especially if you're a paying customer.
I don't think that it's not about sabotage. It's about like, okay, for example, in fashion, like you have all these different like PR companies like Lucien Pagès, KCD, Color Otto, blah, blah, blah. Now, it's quite known that the big PR companies, let's say like a Lucien Pagès, if they sign you as a small designer, they're not really going to focus on you because you're not paying the big bucks. Like the people that are paying the big bucks are keeping the lights on in the office. So you'll be number 50 on their list of priorities. So even though you're paying them, they still don't necessarily have your best interest at heart because all their energy, time, attention, and resources are going to their top 5 clients. So it's kind of like, that's what I mean with a consultant. Like Kai could be paying a consultant that's a really good one. Like Lucien Pagès is an extremely good PR company. But if he's low on their list of priorities, he might not get kind of like the information he needs versus if he worked with like a consultant that isn't as good, let's say comparing that to a PR company that's not as good or has the resources of a Carla Otto or KCD or a Lucien Pagès, but they have your time so they can really tell you and really like, you know, usher you into the fashion world properly.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's just an ability of you being able to convince like another professional to believe in your vision, to believe in your audience, and to believe in your potential, right? And, you know, he's a professional communicator. I bet he can do that. I bet you that there's, even if like it's not like, you know, the head honcho himself, there's somebody at these massive PR companies who believes in, you know, the exercise of trying to say market something to a mid-range gen alpha, you know, clientele, and maybe even use it as a learning experience. Like, how do you market to gen alpha and so on and so forth? They could do it for a variety of reasons, and Kai Cenat would not know the reason why they're doing it. And, you know, when their priority shifts or what have you. But hopefully he has a producer or somebody in a circle who can be like, these guys are doing good by you and these guys are not, and navigates. The guy has a lot of money. He has a lot of room to, like, learn.
Yeah. Like, yeah. It's because, like, I genuinely wish him well, just in general, because I think that, like, he has the potential to do something big in fashion. It's just, once again, it's like, do you have the right info? Are you speaking to the right people? Do you have the right consultants? Are you hiring the right team? Which he probably won't at first because he doesn't have the info, and that's part of it.
And you have the love of the game. Do you actually want to stay in it and put up with all the bullshit and pay all these outrageous, you know, numbers, right? I'm thinking of, like, for instance, Sterling Ruby. Sterling Ruby, who collaborated with like Raf and all this stuff, he was sort of entrenched in the fashion world. He obviously liked it, but he didn't like it enough to stick around. He's not still trying.
It's like, I like Raf, but like, that's hilarious. No, it's true. Like, because, yeah, when you're passionate about something, you should be willing to do whatever. And if it's either you see it as like, that's what you love or not. Like, it just is what it is. Right, Luke says these people, who are you saying has no integrity?
People who have bills to pay, who are his consultants, the industry.
I was like, who has no integrity? But yeah, anyway, in a nutshell, there's a kind of like my thoughts on the whole like Kai Cenat, Vivet kind of whole thing. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought about it, but I'm wishing him the best. I actually wish him well. This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind-the-scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club, where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.